Coming up on Tech News today, is Android closed now? They're not going to open source Honeycomb, at least not for a while. We've got Kevin Purdy from Lifehacker to talk about it. Also, Microsoft picks up some used IPv4 addresses. We'll tell you how much they paid. And Color has got a fix for itself. It's going to break itself. We'll explain why that works.
Netcasts you love.
From people you trust.
This is TWiT.
Bandwidth for Tech News Today is provided by Cachefly at CACHEFLY.com.
This is Tech News Today for Friday, March 25th, 2011. Tech News Today is brought to you by GoToMeeting. Visiting contacts from New York to L.A. and Bangalore to London is time-consuming and expensive. Stay home. Have meetings online instead with GoToMeeting. For your free 30-day trial, visit gotomeeting.com/technews. Welcome to Tech News Today. I'm Tom Merritt.
I'm Sarah Lane.
I'm Jason Howell.
And joining us today, by day, he is known as an editor at Lifehacker, but by night, he is the author of the Complete Android Guide, Mr. Kevin Purdy.
Hello, everybody.
Hey, Kevin.
Thanks for joining us on your day off, man.
Thank you for having me.
We have a particularly pertinent story to someone as yourself who is the author of a Complete Android Guide, actually the Complete Android Guide.
Indeed.
Did you catch the story about Andy Rubin saying we are not going to open source Honeycomb at this time?
Yeah, and it's gathered a lot of it's drawn a lot of criticism onto Android, which was already kind of not betting 1,000, at least in terms of open source advocates' minds of quickly getting Android builds into the open source queue as soon as possible. This one, though, they basically admit in an interview with Ohm, I believe, or at least he got the story that Ohm Malik that it was kind of a shortcut they had to take to get the Zoom out as early as possible, the Zoom tablet with Motorola. And, of course, people are saying, well, is it really worth it to kind of backpedal on open source software just to compete with the iPad too?
Well, and there's also a question of, because you're right, what they said was we rushed the tablet operating system out, and we don't want hardware vendors to adapt it to run on other form factors where it might not function properly. But that implies that we don't believe in the open source model for quality control. We are tending more towards the Apple model of controlling the user experience.
I mean, any story about Android always, you get the wrath of the Android community that really believes in openness, and that's what, they use as ammunition against the Apple fanboys. And, I read something like this and I think, well, okay, as an Android lover who believes in the idea that people can use the open system to create the experience they want, doesn't this prove that, indeed, you will not be able to do that going forward?
Somewhat. I mean, it's just how fast you can do it. You can call yourself open source, but if you don't put the code out there until a year after, the premier devices from the major manufacturers come out, it's of no use to somebody who might have a really great idea for a tablet app. That isn't a major player that Google is kind of working with on a non-disclosure basis.
Yeah, I think they show their lack of belief in the total open source model. Mm-hmm. They're sort of diminishing their ability to be comfortable with not being in control.
There's also some
yeah, go ahead.
Sorry. There's also some hints that maybe Google wasn't so happy with some of the very early tablets, which to surmise were all pretty awful. Not all the Samsung Galaxy Tab. I know Jeff Jarvis is a fan for one, but a lot of the early tablets from a lot of small manufacturers that were running a phone version of Android were all. I've seen one or two of them. They're awful, and so I think maybe it's a little bit of quality control too.
Yeah, especially considering the average person that then ends up going and picking up one of those early tablets that's running on an OS that wasn't intended for being on a tablet. I mean, they judge Google for that at that point. They say, Google, your approach to tablets is horrible. Meanwhile, that OS maybe wasn't intended for tablets at that point.
Would this also be an attempt by Google to try to get control of the developer community too? Because I mean, if you're a developer, you create an app. I mean, you maybe create 3 versions of it. I mean, you can't be creating like 100 versions of Android, and nobody's really going to put the time and effort into that.
Yeah, well, it's part of that, getting rid of that fragmentation, right, Kevin?
Yeah, and also, I mean, I hate to say it, but like Ubuntu Linux is the desktop Linux system is going through a similar quandary where they are moving forward and they're moving beyond some kind of very legacy technologies. They're doing their own desktop. They're doing their own graphic system, and a lot of people are very displeased with them for breaking off from the open source community. But to Ubuntu, much like I assume it is for Google and the Android product, it's like we want to deliver a good product that people can use, and I guess in some cases that requires some compromises.
Yeah, I think this means that Google doesn't really believe in the open source system, whether they want to say that or not. It's evidence of that.
The completely democratic open source system, let's say. They don't believe in the literally like great stuff will filter to the top system.
Right. They're not maybe they even believe that, but they're not willing to put up with the bad stuff that rides up alongside with it. And I think that's really important that you point out that even Ubuntu is starting to have doubts about that. I am a big believer in open source, but you have to be very patient to be a believer in open source. You have to put up with some things not working sometimes and having, incorrect versions of stuff, because it's the same principle behind the wisdom of the crowds. You have a lot of people contributing and then you end up with a better product because of that, but you have to put up with a lot of mistakes in the mix as well. It sounds like Google is just like, you know what, we don't have to put up with that. We're a big enough company.
What if Google were to, instead of saying we can't give you this code because we're not confident that you're going to put out a good product, what if they did release everything was completely open source, but then you had to get some sort of thumbs up approval by Google before it went to market? So that
there's a company that already does that.
Oh, really? Okay.
Well, Apple.
Yeah. I mean, that is the Apple model, right?
Yeah.
Right. You can develop all you want, but in order to actually get it out to people, you have to go through us.
Well, and there's somebody in the chat room, and I wish I could remember who now, brought up Darwin as a parallel to this. The Darwin operating system version of what is it, FreeBSD, is a Unix-like operating system that's the underpinnings of OS X. But Apple doesn't allow OS X to be open sourced. They just use the products of Darwin to underpin, not undermine. They don't want it to undermine OS X, but OS X is not open source. And I think that's another reason we're seeing Google do this, is they're like, yeah, we're fine having some Linux powering this, but we want to control the top. Although there's people saying today, like, they don't even really allow the Linux kernel to stay open. They make modifications to it as well, so they're even more controlling over it.
Well, I guess it wasn't really, my point wasn't that it would have to go through Google and Google would have to give it the okay in order for it to be released. Just some sort of a rating system, I guess, where Google could kind of go like, this is a little bit too much of a, I don't know, crazy Wild West version of Android. We just can't vouch for it working properly if you run it on a tablet.
Google certified.
Yeah, something like that.
Actually,
I mean, if Google wants people to have trust in them, that might be an interesting model for them.
They have something of a program like that too. And those early tablets that were junky and slow and everything, they didn't have some of the Google apps built into them, Gmail, Maps, the Market especially, and they also on their phones they also have a Google stamp that you'll see on some Android phones and not others. And that just basically says, Google says that, this is like a really great use of our OS. And other phones, not so much. They're saying, well, Samsung says this is a great use of the OS.
I guess
and now they're saying for Honeycomb, nobody can use it unless we stamp it. Right. It has to be Google approved, which means big manufacturers, and that's it. And I think they're going to lose something out of that. You're going to lose some of the innovation that takes a long time to pay off. I almost see it as a little bit of impatience on Google's part. But I still understand why they want to have control. It's just, I don't think we can call Android an open platform in that way anymore. Moving on, Spotify making a little bit of news, both good and bad today. They hired Steve Savoca, who ran digital at UK indie label Domino Records, or as Paid Content put it, Spotify hiring Domino's Savoca, which confused me and Kevin for a minute to think that maybe they were hiring someone from the pizza chain.
Domino Savoca. Domino Records, a lot of people aren't familiar with it, but they have a few somewhat big name indie artists.
Pavement.
Animal Collective.
Yeah.
So it's not one of the big ones. It's not Universal. But I don't know. I mean, I guess they're hiring folks This is they're hiring folks in their New York office. So all signs point to, yes, we're still trying to make it happen. But they haven't signed Universal, and they haven't signed Warner Brothers, I believe, which is another big guy. So it's like they're halfway there, but this is sort of the same story we've heard already. There's just more evidence that they're ramping up, right?
Spotify CEO Daniel Ek says, now that we have Steve Savoca on board as an employee, we would like to have some rock star engineers and product people. Don't have a product yet, but please come and work for us. Because I mean, this indicates that they're confident they'll get one, though.
Yeah, and go ahead, Kevin.
No, so they're in the same position as Netflix right now, which I think we'll see later in the show. Maybe that they're in the same position where they're basically asking companies, we have this really good, proven, consumer-friendly way of delivering content to you folks, into folks who want to subscribe. Won't you give us some of it to hand over? And they're just piecemeal having to string together a business model, which kind of stinks.
Spotify needs to, they got to get their butts in gear because they have competition from RDO is one of the examples that I'm always...
Here in the U.S., we use RDO because there is no Spotify
and
yet.
It's growing in popularity, and it doesn't really have a legitimate competitor yet. Google Music sounds to be something that, no, it's not to market right now, but they're working on it. I mean, Spotify, if they don't beat Google, I don't really know how much I'm going to care anymore.
Users of the ad-supported version of Spotify in Europe were hit by a malware-based attack on Thursday, though. Spotify pulled its ad feed on Friday. So, that's just bad timing. These things happen. But if you're taking that business model of having ad-supported free, every once in a while, you're going to be a victim of this sort of thing. It's not that big of a deal. But at this point, if I were to be flip about it, I'd say, well, I'm glad I don't have Spotify. They're full of malware.
Well, you can.
Yeah.
There's no way you could have had Spotify.
Is that fair, though, Kevin?
Yeah. Kind of is. No, I mean, that everyone gets little malware attacks, even Apple occasionally now and then. And, it's all about how you respond to it.
And the reason Spotify keeps getting so much press, even though it's this vapor service that we in the U.S. keep waiting for and never getting. I mean, it's very popular overseas. People are very happy with Spotify. People love it. It's a service that means a lot to a lot of people. People love streaming music. So every time they hire somebody that's a sort of big name in the music industry who has a lot of connections, you think, okay, well, there's just one more reason that this is not going to fall apart. They're going to figure something out. I also think they had some Americans who had gotten free accounts to kind of test out the market and get people excited. And I believe those folks have now gotten notices that they'll have to start paying for the service.
Even though they're secret and they can't say where they got them.
Yes, we all have secret coworkers.
That's right.
I am not one of those people. Are you, Kevin?
I have one or two secret Spotify users who are very cloak and dagger about how they got it, whether they have to pay for it or not.
But you didn't get one either.
No.
Okay.
I would be burning up my router if I did.
So I think the four of us can agree we hate Spotify right now.
Absolutely.
Until they give us a
to
free
the moon,
account.
Spotify.
Yeah. Three of us, anyway.
Really? Who's left out?
Oh.
No, Kevin doesn't have one.
Oh.
So he's in.
So, okay.
So just three of us then.
Oh. I believe we can all agree we hate someone in this room right now.
No,
Microsoft
what's up with Microsoft?
Spends $7.5 million at a garage sale on some used IPv4 addresses. It was actually a going out of business sale for Nortel. Nortel is being liquidated. And so the 666 to 624 IP version 4 address block was put up for auction. As part of the sell-off of Nortel's assets, Microsoft won the bid, $7.5 million. That's $11.25 per address. Are we starting a used IPv4 market
Sounds
here?
like we are. I mean, $11 is, I don't know, it's more than I pay per year for SarahLane.com.
Yeah, it's more. I mean, it's it's IP address, not exactly translatable, but yeah, it's more than you pay for a .com. It's true.
Am I being naive? I mean, is 666,624 net addresses more than I feel like they are? Am I just so used to things being quoted in millions now that this doesn't seem like that big of a number? Why does Microsoft want this number so badly? I mean, it's a lot of money.
Yeah, well, that's a good question. Why do they want it? I suppose that they're hedging their bets and helping them delay having to transition to IPv6.
Yeah. It just seems to, I don't know. How long until those 600 and some odd thousand, they go away and then Microsoft just has to buy more? I guess you could do that for a while.
There are plenty of IPv4 addresses kicking around. Kevin, do you have any idea why Microsoft want this block?
Like you said, I think it's just hedging your bets until IPv6 comes along. Although I like this as a new revenue model for people who have all these like tiny blogs. Maybe Google can come buy my kittenmittens.com IPv4 if I own it.
That's right.
Lots of little bloggers getting money from big companies.
Steve Gibson from Security Now was saying he's got an extra block of IPv4 addresses he's been sitting on.
Like you said, it's like the TJ Maxx of IPv4.
Yeah, it's a gold mine.
Pick them up. Scratch and dent.
Barely used IPv4 addresses. Only been pinged once. All right, let's take a break and thank our sponsor, GoToMeeting. If I were on a conference call with Kevin Purdy, it would not be boring. It would be fun. But with most people on a conference call, it's not only boring but also unproductive because you're on a call. You can't see each other. If you want to be productive, try GoToMeeting. GoToMeeting keeps everyone on the same page. Everyone on the call can see your screen. You can go through your presentation. You don't have to explain, well, what we're looking at, Bob. It's all right there. It means you'll save time and be more productive. It's great for sales presentations, product demos, training sessions, collaborating, weekly update calls. Any type of conference call should be replaced with GoToMeeting, and you don't have to believe us. You can go to gotomeeting.com/technews, have all the meetings you want for one low flat rate, phone and voice over IP conferencing included, and you can try it for 30 days for free. You don't have to pay them at all. Just go to gotomeeting.com/technews and sign up right now for the free 30-day trial. If you're doing conference calls, you need to give this a shot because it can make you more productive. Let's move on to a Google patent that has been filed that BNet pointed out some interesting things about. Now, this is a patent for, it's called Distributed Electronic Commerce System with Centralized Point of Purchase, but it's essentially like making payments. The thing is, the way they wrote the patent, it could be used online or it could be used in person. Mm-hmm. A third-party broker, that's like your PayPal, your Visa, or maybe in this case Google Checkout, receives a description of a shopping cart from a remote customer device.
Yes.
So Visa gets the list of everything you bought. The cart identifies the items for purchase by the customer from the remote merchant, calculates the total due, and then charges the customer.
Right.
Now, this all sounds like, well, how can they patent this? This is the same as what I do with Visa. But what's different is when you go and you buy something at the grocery store, they ring you up, they take your Visa card, they swipe it through, and the total amount gets sent to Visa, and that's it. That's all they have.
Visa doesn't know what I bought or that I like grapefruits and that I like wine.
What this is doing is saying, we're going to ring you up, and then we're going to take that receipt, and we're going to hand it to Visa. And Visa says, oh, not only do I get the total amount, but I get a little bit of information about everything you bought. And now I can start collecting that and collating it.
So Google would not act as the broker. Visa would still act as the broker, but Google would be providing them more information than everyone else does?
Well, Visa could be the broker or Google Checkout could be the broker. So Google could be operating, two sides of this equation. But essentially what they're saying is this could work online, could work in an Android marketplace, or it could work at your gas station when you go in with your Nexus S and pay with the NFC chip.
If there's anything credit card companies need, it's more information about us and more things they can sell about us. Really, it solves a problem that we've all had, which is how can I help American Express?
Yeah. I've been wondering myself that same question. They do a nice job. The credit card companies do a nice job of randomly changing the number of my credit card without telling me, cutting off my account because my wife was in New York and I was in California and it looked like fraud. Mm-hmm. So I do need to help them out in other ways they could use to make my life harder.
I mean, again, this is an obvious question, and maybe I'm missing something, but isn't this a privacy problem? I mean, if I'm going to Shell and filling up my gas and buying 10 Snickers bars, and for some reason I'm marketed to because of that, I mean, isn't that unacceptable?
Yeah.
The one, the one way it would, the only, I guess, advocation I could do for it is that, like, if it would help you make returns, because then you don't need a receipt, because every time you've made a transaction, that is a receipt.
You've got your proof already. Yeah.
Right. Like, so you could just, bring your phone to Target and say, oh, this dish rack or whatever, I want to return it, and here's when I bought it.
Or some sort of like universal discount system. A lot of retailers have a thing where they track all the things you buy, and then they give you a discount every so often based on how much you've purchased. If Google Checkout did that for all your purchases, so it's a loyalty program for Google Checkout, but it doesn't matter where you spend your money.
But I mean, credit card companies already do things like that. Yeah. They're just not doing it by type of item. They're doing it on number value. You spend $100 and you get some free airline miles.
Right, but this way, it's like buy 10 rolls of toilet paper, get the hey, buying your 11th toilet paper, we're going to give that one to you free. I mean, how cool would that be?
So cool. Oh my gosh.
Cool. I just saved 79 cents.
I don't know. This is interesting, though. I mean, it's they're shaking up the marketplace.
And it is just a patent. Yeah. We'll see what they actually do with it.
It's a really competitive space. That whole mobile payments market, that, as I was telling Tom earlier, it's South by Southwest. Like, there are tons of free tacos and free everything if you use your credit card somewhere and hand it to a guy with an iPhone.
Yeah, figuring out the payment system itself has a whole conference down in Orlando every year, and people trying all these crazy things where they're creating these little credit cards, like mini credit cards with limited value on them that people can use and then go online, and the idea of like lifting all of that out of physical space and putting it on a phone and powered in the cloud that's like the gold mine for that industry. Absolutely. Mozilla says it made a mistake in not disclosing the Komodo attack earlier. We talked about this yesterday on Tech News Today. The attack involved the certificate authority Komodo having certificates hacked away from them. There were 8 certificates of domain names like login.yahoo.com, mail.google.com. One of those was used, login.yahoo.com was used and tested on an Iranian IP address. Now, after some criticism from many people, including Jacob Appelbaum, who discovered this flaw and sort of forced Komodo to reveal it, Mozilla says they did not publish the information prior to shipping the patch to the browser because they were afraid that any indication that they knew about the attack would lead to attackers blocking the security updates as well, and they recognized that the obvious mitigation advice we might offer risked causing a significant portion of the legitimate web to break. Those would be things like changing Firefox security preferences to require a valid online certificate status protocol. Here's the interesting thing. Everyone uses the certificate revocation list, the CRL mechanism, to check if a certificate is valid or not. However, if the CRL doesn't respond, the default behavior is to assume that it is valid. So all you have to do is block the CRL.
No news is good news.
Yeah,
you're fine.
So if you're one of these people who hacked in and got a real certificate, but you were afraid that it was going to be listed on the certificate revocation list, you could just block the certificate revocation list. The CRL's blocked, then the browser goes, well, I guess this certificate's fine. So there is also the online certificate status protocol, but not everybody checks that. So anyway, it's a whole complicated part of the way certificate issuance works. And this hack has really shined a spotlight on it and shown some areas where it needs to be improved. Anyway, Mozilla is saying neither we nor Komodo have found any evidence of access to their online certificate status protocol responder being blocked either in Iran or anywhere else. In hindsight, while it was made in good faith, we made the wrong decision. We should have informed web users more quickly about the threat and the potential mitigations as well as their side effects.
Well, they won't do this again. I mean, I think they're behaving now as appropriately as they can. They feel that they should have alerted folks earlier. They didn't. They have more information now, and they've apologized. It's
Mozilla has apologized. None of the other browsers have bothered to say anything about it.
Well,
I'm not sure we're going to hear from any of them anyway. But
Microsoft says, let's not talk about
Mozilla,
security
then.
certificates. Let's just not bring it up.
let's just move on. Microsoft says, hey, wouldn't you rather talk about that new Asus ePad transformer? Except that it's an Android tablet, so they're probably not that excited about it. But we saw this at CES. It was on display at Mobile World Congress. I think it was on display at CeBIT as well. But Asus has finally introduced the ePad transformer. It launches in Taiwan first. It's a convertible Android tablet that runs Android 3.0, runs Honeycomb, and it is unique in that you can buy an optional full keyboard dock that the 10.1-inch tablet can then sit in, providing a laptop-like experience. Now, obviously, you can get keyboards for some tablets, like the iPad, but this is a dock where the tablet comes in, and it looks like you're using a netbook.
Yeah, I mean, this was a standout at CES because it truly is a transformer. I mean, it's a tablet, and
it truly
it's
is
a
more than
notebook.
meets the eye.
Yes. It's an Autobot. It's a good guy.
Could they have picked more of a Windows-like desktop for this laptop to have in the background? The green field with the blue sky.
Oh yeah, I know. Could they have cleaned
Kinda
off
confusing
the screen? That would have been nice. I mean, this is I like it. I mean, for somebody who's going to use the convenience of a tablet on a regular basis, but still travels a lot or types a lot or for whatever reason needs a keyboard and needs it to feel sturdy. This is a neat option.
Yeah, well, I mean, I was
Sets it
really
apart
taken.
from all the tablets.
I was taken by the Lenovo U1 2 years ago at CES because it was the same idea. You had a tablet screen, you pulled it out of the dock, and it worked as a laptop. We're still waiting on that.
Yeah.
And it looks like Asus has beaten them to the punch.
Using Android with a laptop keyboard would be interesting because I really like Gmail in the Android 3.0 interface, but I don't know what kind of word processing app you would use if you were on Android. I guess Google Docs.
Yeah, I could see that. You use Google Docs. But what if you're on an airplane? I mean, one of the uses I see of that is like, well, maybe I wouldn't take my laptop if I had a tablet that I could put in a keyboard, and when I'm on the airplane, well, not every airplane has Wi-Fi, but I still may have some stuff to do. Is there a way, Kevin, to do offline Google Docs on an Android tablet?
Not Docs. I mean, there are clients that let you do, like, say, Simple Note, which is an online text syncing thing. And then you could also, I've gone through my email on the plane before, and then you just do it in airplane mode, turn the phone on, and it sends it all when you land.
Yeah.
I can't think of like a full-fledged, doc editing suite. There are a few actually though, like Quick Office and Docs to Go, that I haven't really messed around with, especially with a laptop keyboard. So interesting. I wish I could have a tester now, pretty much.
Yeah, it creates more of a need for that stuff. Netbook News reports that the 16 gigabyte slate will cost $14,900 NT. That's Taiwanese currency. So that equivalent is about $500 US, with an extra $3,000 for the keyboard dock. That's an extra $100 US for the keyboard dock. They've heard that the slate price will be priced around $400 in the United States, though. So
pretty good.
Yeah, it's going to be coming to Europe first. They're going to launch it in Taiwan. It's coming to Europe. I can't remember the date now, and I can't see it anymore, but they were going to send it to Europe within a couple months, and then the U.S. gets it later.
Why do we always get everything
gonna
last?
Yeah.
We're always last.
We never get anything in the U.S. first, do we? iPad. All right, finally, I know we're probably sick to death of nuclear stories from Japan, but we haven't talked about one in several days on Tech News Today anyway, and I thought that Lewis Page over at the Register had a pretty good story debunking some of the crazy headlines you may be seeing about what's happening at Fukushima. It turns out that things are actually going very well there. I want to point out that Eric Jones, we haven't been reading his emails, but he's been sending us regular emails sort of backing up what we've been saying about Japan. He is in Japan. He works for the military. He's on a U.S. Air Force base there. His latest email, for instance, says, "Hi all, things are pretty much down to serious brow furrowing and acute anxiousness rather than hair-on-end panic. The realization of many other things will begin to take precedence as people shift focus." So he's talking about how folks on the ground in Japan are starting to move away from worrying that tragedy is going to happen and more of how to deal with the aftermath. And the Lewis Page article on the Register points out that you may have seen these headlines about the 3 workers who were standing in radioactive water and how they were hospitalized. It's being blown out of proportion. What happened is they received a 170 millisievert dose of radiation. They got burns on their legs, equivalent to sunburn. And so because of that, they were sent to a clinic. The maximum dose permitted before a worker is pulled is 250. So they didn't even get the maximum dose, but the minimum dose to have that could possibly cause the barest chance of cancer is 100. So as soon as you see somebody got over 100, you send them to the hospital. You have them checked out. They're being careful.
It's preventative.
And that's what's happening with a lot of these stories is the guys on the ground are doing the right thing. They're being extra, extra careful.
Right.
But then the news agencies take that and turn it into it's the worst case scenario.
Worker rushed to hospital with 3rd-degree burns.
The level in the water could be an indication of a reactor containment breach. A breach is possible, but a containment breach has been possible for over a week. So this is not proof that happened, as some people have reported. This is just an indication that there's a small chance that there is a containment breach, and that's a serious thing. I don't want to minimize it. But the radiation in the water isn't any real additional information to that. Also, there was the water in Tokyo. They put a ban on babies drinking water in Tokyo. That has since been lifted. That ban has been lifted. That was because levels of radioactive iodine-131 were found in the city's water, which were above the safety limit for baby milk, calculated on the basis of a year's consumption. In other words, if babies had drank the water in Tokyo for a year constantly, they would have a tiny extra risk of thyroid cancer. And again, Lewis Page even thinks that this was irresponsible. I don't. I think it was the right thing to do, to say, you know what? Don't let your babies drink the water for a couple of weeks. Let's be extra safe about that. But it is a minuscule risk that they're trying to prevent. Iodine-131 has a half-life of 8 days, which means in a matter of weeks, it decays and it's gone from the water. So
that said, though, Tom, if you lived in Tokyo and you had a little kid, I mean, you want to know about this.
Yeah, absolutely.
Even if it's minuscule, even if it's slightly half minuscule.
I agree with you there. And that's where I differ a little from what Lewis Page wrote. But on the other hand, it doesn't mean that no one in Tokyo should drink the water.
Right.
You can handle more radiation than babies. And we're talking about very small amounts of radiation and very small amounts of risk.
What happens when you boil water for 5 minutes? I mean, is this all still applicable?
I don't know if boiling gets rid of any radiation.
No?
No.
It will survive that?
Boiling kills bacteria.
Bacteria.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, I don't drink the water in San Francisco either, but if I have to, I'll just boil it for a few minutes.
And then there's a
different issue.
A new scientist story by Deborah McKenzie out, which I feel like the Deborah McKenzie story itself is well written, talking about the comparison of the Fukushima reactor fallout with the Chernobyl fallout. But then a lot of people are saying the Fukushima fallout is near to the same as Chernobyl, and in fact, Fukushima could be approximately 20% of the emissions of iodine-131 from Chernobyl, and 20 to 60% of radiocesium. And cesium is actually never been proved to be harmful. That doesn't mean it's safe, but it's never been proved to be harmful. Iodine-131 can cause thyroid cancer, but at 20%, again, these emissions are very low, and what caused the illnesses in Chernobyl were a lot of other things in the particulate matter from the explosion, as well as giving babies milk, which had high concentrations of iodine in the milk. So it's all about knowing what the real risks are, because I'm not trying to say there aren't risks, but people like to go from 0 to 150, on these sorts of things.
It's hard to write a story that says protocols followed, health risks averted.
That's right. No, totally.
Nobody's going to. It's hard to put that in the paper.
Believe me, having been a professional headline writer at one point in my career, I know it's like, well, can't we just make the headline sound sexier? And then then your story can be responsible.
Then rezoning permits will sound awesome.
Yeah, exactly. All right, let's move on to the news fuse. Yes, Mashable reports that Color, the new crazy photo app that takes pictures and shares them with whoever happens to be around you.
41 million.
Right, got $41 million. Color has a fix for the problem with the photo app being useless when nobody else is around.
What's the fix?
They're gonna break it.
So you just can't use the app if you're
Color
alone?
will feature 2 major changes when the next update ships. You won't be able to use the app if nobody's nearby. Then you won't be able to tell it doesn't work.
They also toyed around with the idea of calling your old college roommates and inviting them over, but they decided just rather they'd,
That's phase 3.
Yeah.
Hold on. So you click on the app and it just
It'll say,
crashes?
no, nobody's around. We're not going to work right now.
Bye.
Second, and I think this one's a better fix, Color will be changing the distance required for somebody to be considered nearby. Right now, that distance is set at 150 feet. In the future, the number will adjust based on population density. So it will kind of expand until there's enough people to make the app useful.
I see. So if you're at the World Series, it's probably everybody in the ballpark. Kind
Yeah,
of thing,
right.
rather
It'll limit itself.
rather than your little section.
Right. Or if you're in San Rafael like me and I open it, like there's nobody else around here using Color.
Because you're the only tech guy in San Rafael.
Well, it would expand from 150 feet, which is like me in my room alone, to like the entire city, and perhaps I might find a couple other people.
I actually, all my experience with Color at my own house is like the guy who lives below me, the floor, and then the woman who lives across the street. And it's very awkward.
Yeah.
Because I've seen them in the hallway, but I didn't necessarily want to play Color with them.
VCs are going to start asking entrepreneurs if their business models are based entirely on San Francisco's Mission District and Brooklyn, and if so, can we please make sure it works elsewhere?
Yes.
I mean, that's the fallout, really.
Absolutely.
That's a good rule.
All right, moving on to hybrid users like Tom, who think they're so smart. Oh, they're so much better than the rest of us with the gas mileage and the gas tax evasion. Well, you know what? You can't evade the gas tax anymore, Tom. The Congressional Budget Office released a report stating that they may tax people based on how many miles they drive in order to pay for highway maintenance.
Wait. How are they going to tell how many miles I drove?
The proposed tax would be enforced through the use of electronic metering devices installed on all vehicles. People won't resist that.
No, everybody will love the government putting a meter in their car.
Yeah. No,
Yeah.
You're driving, hybrid user. You're
see
driving like the rest of
no
us.
problem with
And there's
that.
a pothole that needs to be fixed. Won't fill
Who's
itself.
paying for that? Selfish.
Nice. Starz plans to delay the availability of new TV shows and movies to Netflix beginning April 1st. New episodes of original shows, like the forthcoming Camelot, will be delayed 90 days before being available on Netflix. A handful of other internet services that licenses content will also be delayed. Starz adds that exclusive first-run movies on the channel will later follow suit. So we're going to be all waiting about 6 years to see Iron Man 5 now, I guess.
You know what? What I think might happen, which they're not counting on, is that people just stop and be like, fine, I'll wait.
Right.
Paying for Netflix. I'm just going to wait.
I can feel
People
bad
are
about
already
myself and
used
watch
to
Food Inc.
waiting.
now or watch it later.
Samsung has started making higher capacity mobile RAM that will lead to smaller phones and better battery life. The 30 nanometer 4 gigabit LPDDR2 chips reduce package thickness by 20% down to 0.8 millimeters and power consumption by 25%. Oh, and that does mean higher capacity RAM. Samsung is putting out 1 gigabyte modules this month with a 2 gigabyte version to follow next month. 2 gigabytes in your thin, better battery life smartphone. No word on when they'll show up in actual phones, though.
We could be facing a PS3 shortage soon. Sony's blue laser diode manufacturing subsidiary in Fukushima, Japan, Sony Shiraishi Semiconductor, has been suspended due to the earthquake. Digitimes believes that this could seriously disrupt the supply of Blu-ray devices, especially Sony's PlayStation 3. Sony's blue laser diode production mostly caters to the company's own brand devices. Bummer.
Maker of BlackBerry RIM said profits this quarter will be much weaker than expected, and they blame the cost on developing the BlackBerry Playbook, as well as a migration of consumers toward cheaper handsets in its product range, but definitely not the iPhone. Shares in Research in Motion fell 12% in after-hours trading.
I bought a Playbook. I've done my part to help RIM.
You have.
I really do like the Playbook.
I don't know why you're apologizing. You're totally into
know.
it.
Why am I
Stop saying sorry.
I'm sorry.
lot
the
of-
Playbook.
I liked it.
A lot of tech folks love the Playbook. We just haven't seen it.
I've played with it twice now,
You pre-ordered it,
and I pre-ordered it.
so you've done all you can.
Everything I can, Rim. You fall apart, it's your own fault. The International Trade Commission today ruled that Apple did not violate any of Nokia's patents. Nokia had claimed that Apple's iPhone and iPad infringed 5 of its patents related to enhanced speech and data transmission, the use of positioning data in applications, and innovations in antenna configurations. No word on Apple's counterclaim that Nokia violated 13 Apple patents. the other shoe waiting to drop. All right, let's finish up with Aircell making the world's first airborne smartphone.
Is that when you just throw your phone and you're like, look at it go?
No. This is a smartphone you can use on an airplane.
Oh, that is
Yeah.
very intriguing.
Yeah, you just have to have your own airplane.
Oh. So you have to be
And-
like President Obama.
And then your
or-
airplane has to have the Aircell Access communication system that is also currently in production,
the CEO of Color.
as well as the forthcoming GoGo Biz voice service. And then
Richard Branson.
you can buy the Aircell phone and use it on your own plane.
I'm just
Cool.
glad that it's as complicated for billionaires as it is for us.
Except they hire people like us
Right.
to figure this out for them. Like, Merritt, make sure my Aircell works.
Yeah. As long as
With
we don't have to fly the
Yobongo or
plane.
Wingo,
Yeah.
whatever.
Make sure.
Sorry.
And if it doesn't work, you fire it. All right, let's move on to some
calendar.
calendar.
The Nintendo 3DS is available in Europe today and North America on Sunday, that's March 27th, and on Australia, March 31st. Again, Europe gets everything first, but in this case, we're not last. Australia is. The Apple iPad 2 has launched internationally today in 25 countries. A lot of lines, a lot of ridiculous lines. In fact, this is a line from, what is it, New Zealand?
Yeah, thanks to Nick for sending it along. This is the huge line out there in
The rain didn't keep these
New
people
Zealand.
away. No, sir. Yep, the launch. It's like how I felt in Austin.
This feels like Groundhog's Day right here.
It does.
See, we get long lines first in the U.S.
Right. That's the only thing we get first. It's like being last. Yosion's, I think that's the name of it. Yosion's second gen iPad Peel, or I'm sorry, Apple Peel 520 arriving on March 28th and ready to cellularize your iPod Touch. So if you have an iPod Touch and you want to make it a phone, Yosion wants to help you. The Nook Color Android App Store is coming in April along with Flash support. The Xperia X10 is going to get Android 2.3 this summer. And the Xperia Play has been delayed by O2 UK due to software bugs. But if it's not an O2 specific problem, and O2 apparently hasn't customized Android 2.3 on the Play, we're not really sure why carriers are not also having similar delays. It's a little unclear right now, but it's happening.
Maybe it's because they're afraid of GeoHots coming and buying it in their country.
He's in spring break.
But he said he'd be back in time for the Xperia Play
Oh,
because he can't get it in Brazil.
got it. That's probably why.
Yeah.
That's a good, there's your answer.
That's the answer right there. All right, let's finish up with an email to tnt@twit.tv. This email came from Matt, who is a state trooper, responding to our discussions of the app that allows you to tell where DUI checkpoints are. Do you have a position statement on this, Kevin, on the app?
No, I enjoy no.
Because
Don't drive drunk. You just don't drive drunk.
Well,
period.
don't drive drunk,
Yeah.
but the checkpoint could be used by perfectly sober people who just don't want to get slowed down by having
Yeah,
to
do you
go
have a
through
problem with that not being available to people who aren't breaking the law or and putting anyone else in danger?
Only if it's not fragmented on Android. So like Android 1.5 users are constantly being pulled over, whereas Android 2.3 users, no. I think it's fine. Public information is public information.
Well, if people hadn't heard, senators had written to Apple asking Apple to take the app out of the store. Apple, as yet, as far as I know, has not responded. RIM has taken it out of the BlackBerry store, and Google has not said anything about it.
The corporate executives are the most likely to drive drunk.
Is that true?
No.
I'd like to believe that's true.
But they all have Blackberries, so that was a pretty weak joke.
Right,
Sorry.
exactly. They obviously are drunk because they're not.
Yes.
They're flying with their Aircell phones too.
So frustrated.
Anyway, back to Matt's email. He says, my agency holds numerous checkpoints per year. They are very effective. We get a lot of drunk drivers off the highways because of these checkpoints. What we run into more than apps being used is Facebook. A lot of people, especially the younger crowd, post our checkpoint locations on Facebook. We have had people we know pull up and tell us, hey, you're on Facebook. I think more people use the social networks more than any app. Either way, we arrest a lot of drunk drivers, even with people posting on Facebook and Twitter. I'm sure there are some people who have avoided our checkpoints, but I haven't seen any downturn in drunk driver arrests. And he's assigned to a 3-county area along with 8 other troopers. He says, I don't think the government should tell a company what they can and can't offer to its customers as long as it's within the law. The checkpoint apps aren't any different than the speed trap apps or people posting the location of the checkpoints in other areas. The government won't stop people from telling others. They just changed how they dispense the information. With or without apps, people are going to tell their friends. They can call, text, Twitter, or Facebook each other, and there really isn't anything that can be done about it. We don't worry about people telling each other where we are located. We try to do the best we can and protect the public from the drunk drivers. Besides, just because we are in one location doesn't mean there aren't more of us somewhere else. We may have 3 on a checkpoint, 2 on another checkpoint, and 1 patrolling. You just never know. It would be best if people would just get a designated driver or take a taxi.
Absolutely. I mean, he raises a very good point that we were talking about while we covered the story earlier in the week, is like, well, if you're going to pull an app that gives information, then am I breaking the law by tweeting out that there's a checkpoint 5 blocks away, you know, that I've just passed through and there was a lot of traffic and it's going to impact your commute home? Well, no. I mean, that's sort of impossible for them. I don't know. I mean, the implications is a lot bigger than just pulling.
And the users of color can now not take a picture of the checkpoint and send it to their friends, because if their friends aren't nearby, they'll never find out.
I like how users of color has a very different meaning than how it might have meant to me had you said it a week ago. No, I'm just saying. I know what you mean. It just could sound different to somebody who didn't know what we were talking about.
All right.
Boy.
I know.
2 for 1.
It's a good domain, I gotta say.
Yeah,
Color.com.
Yeah, exactly. If you've got that domain, what are you going to do with it? You're going to make an app.
Well, they paid $350,000 for it.
If you pay, well, they got 42 billion?
41 million, Tom.
Yeah.
Let's not get crazy.
Yeah, something like that. Anyway, we reported yesterday on TNT that Google said they would not pull the app from the Android store. So I'd forgotten about that. Thanks to the chat room.
Rim bows, Google stays.
And Apple doesn't respond. That's about right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Kevin Purdy, thank you so much for being on the show again. It's great to have you. I hope you enjoyed Liquid Friday.
Oh, thank you very much for having me.
Kevin is the author of The Complete Android Guide, as well as an editor at lifehacker.com. Anything else to let people know about?
No, that's it for now.
All right. So find him. Oh, yes, go ahead.
Oh, wait, sorry. We are just about to launch with a Android 3.0 Honeycomb and 2.3 Gingerbread version. New ebook, new paper print book coming very soon.
Of The Complete Android Guide?
Of The Complete Android Guide.
Excellent.
Nice.
Just in the last stages right now. So.
All right. Next week, we welcome a new era at Tech News Today. Ayaz Akhtar will start with us. We're looking forward to having him along on the show as well. So tune in and hear the first official Ayaz shows when he's not a guest. That's it for this edition of TNT. We will see you Monday. Find us twit.tv/TNT. Email us TNT@twit.tv or give us a call. You never call and let us know how you are, but keep it under 30 seconds. 260-TNT show. See you Monday.
Catter day, gotta leave that pound date. Everybody get crunk for the kitty, cat a day, gotta leave that pound day, fun.
Oh, come on. You weren't even trying to sell that. That was terrible.
That was the best thing ever.
Now you
I
can
have
either
not seen that before.
thank or blame Near Dog in the chat room. Who said
Near
that.
Dog, I owe you a drink.